Greetings. Good evening, everyone, or wherever you are around the world, or wherever time it is. Here, the Magha full moon is just rising in the forest over the eastern mountains, and shining. The moonlight is shining in through the window here at our Aranya Bodhi Awakening Forest Hermitage on the Sonoma coast. We're inside our Sangha hall here together with our winter retreatants, my co-residents, co-dwellers in the forest. And now is the time to see if you're able to hear me. Okay, I'm glad to see all of you. Friends who I've known for a long time. Happy to see you on this Magha full moon night. And also some old friends who I haven't seen in a long time. So welcome to everyone. This is our 4th winter retreat Uposatha program. And the full moon, and we're now 2/3 of the way through our winter retreat. And with this full moon, then we'll be entering the last month of our retreat. Our last Uposatha program, number 6, is going to be on the next full moon. So I'm happy to be with you all during all of these programs, although the next one, I'm not going to be with you. Lee Brasington, disciple of Ayya Kema, will be with you for the next new moon, 2 weeks from now, 1 fortnight from now, during my silent, secluded retreat time, which I have coming up for the next 3 weeks. So I am so relieved and glad to think about having that time upcoming. And I just want to bless all of the fortunate circumstances, which includes all of you and so many others, and everything that's been gifted in kindness and generosity that's a support here that is allowing us to have this opportunity, and for me to have this opportunity, for all of us to have this opportunity together tonight. So please join me in blessing all these fortunate conditions, including all of the fortunate human conditions and non-human conditions, the material support, the moral support, the Dhamma support, all of that. So as I mentioned, you may have heard me say it's the Magha full moon. This is Indian language for this month, also called the Magha Purnima. Purnima is the full moon. And in Theravada Buddhism, this is a very important moon. In Thai and Southeast Asian Theravada Buddhism, this day is called Magha Puja. Puja is for veneration, honoring, reverence, in remembrance and appreciation. In Sri Lanka, then this day is called the Nawang Poya. Nawa means new, and actually in China, in East Asia, in quite a lot of the countries around the world, this is the northern countries, this is the spring moon, the moon that begins the first full moon of the year. So then also women in Buddhism, today is a very special day. And this period of time, this week from today through to this coming lunar quarter, this is the time of the Parinibbana or Maha Parinibbana of our founding bhikkhuni, awakened foremother Mahapajapati Gautami Theri, and the founding bhikkhuni Sangha. And in Tibetan Buddhism, this full moon is also, this time is known as the Day of Miracles from this full moon, and then also for the week following. I have a question about that. Maybe we'll get to that later. But first, let me go over with you, I'll briefly review what our program is this evening. We have this time now of greetings and introduction, then about 25 minutes of sitting meditation together. I'll ask for the bell, wherever it is. And then 25 to 30 minutes of Dhamma reflection, although the Dhamma time this evening might be a little extended. Then about 30 minutes for Q&A and Dhamma discussion. And then normally we have a closing dedication around 8:30. This evening, because of it being a very special full moon night, as I mentioned, then I'd like to offer something special in remembrance at this time, that all of you who are here are welcome to join for. Not sure if you've got a message that invited you to bring a candle or flowers or incense, an image of the Buddha, or of one of the awakened bhikkhunis or arahantas. If you have any of these, then welcome to keep them with you, and then we'll have a special time of remembrance together. So if you have to go, if you're in the Pacific California time, if you have to go at 8:30, then you're welcome to do so, or if you'd like to join for the few minutes of special chanting and remembrance together, candlelit remembrance together, then you're welcome to do so. So now we're going to begin with our time of meditation together. So the ambiance of the full moon is felt strongly in the forest here now. Even last night, the moon was so bright, shining in the forest, then I thought I was tired. But then going out in the forest in the full moon and the kuti being pervaded, my little hut being pervaded by the full moon light, then I didn't feel tired anymore because of the magnificent ambiance of the full moon and those meditating here together. So I'm glad to be able to share this excellent ambiance with you in the meditation time, and for all of you who've been practicing together during this time, then to think about sharing the blessings and the benefits of what you've been working with, growing, developing during this time with all who've joined together. So open in the heart, body, and mind to giving and receiving of the blessings, the strength, the good energy of our practice together. So we'll see if the bell comes during this time. If it does, then I'll ring the bell at the end. Otherwise, I might do something that we did in India long ago when we didn't have a bell. We would just snap our fingers 3 times at the end of the meditation. Yes. So someplace also even just I'll request in the ballots of wood can just make a well, now it's time for us to go into our after this a few minutes of our no bell silence. So welcome to join the meditation together with all those who are here. finding our meditation. Through settling, putting everything to rest, opening to the experience, awareness and perception opening up as everything is set down. All of the energy of body and mind becomes free. Sensitive to feeling. Knowing how the body is now. From head to foot. Just seeing it, feeling it, sensing it, just as it looks or feels or is sensed right now. Glad to have this time. With gratitude and appreciation. Our good fortune. Seeing how that appreciation resonates in the heart and in the body. Gladness, appreciation, the recognition and awareness of our good fortune. And the wish to make good with it, to fully show up, to fully meet it. Handshake and embrace with our good fortune, stepping into it, allowing ourselves to fully inhabit it. Notice how that brings a waking up. The opening of awareness through recognition. And openness to what's called for. A heart of willingness. ready to see and know the Dhamma, ready to respond with Dhamma. Relaxing and opening simultaneous with the rising, opening, and deepening and strengthening of awareness. Bringing the quality of love, our heart of dedication to this. Bringing our noble heart to bear. To full presence, to fully inhabiting his body, feelings, mind, and heart. Filling the body, filling the breath, fully inhabiting the sense of touch, sight, sound, all the senses, body and mind, heart. Let's take a moment of our dedication, our blessings to all beings, our companions, all beings here in the forest, under the full moonlight, the skies, earth, waters, all forms of life. Blessings to all beings and all the beings of this life. Many living beings of this body, all the beings and all their stories that we hold within our hearts. All the great multifaceted elements of our minds, consciousness, awareness. Touching and holding all with kindness. To all is I will abide with a heart of loving kindness to the all-encompassing world. Sabe sata suki hontu, oera sukachiwino. Oh, it's sort of such time to so as in our previous Uposatha programs, I'd like to take a little time to go over the teachings of Ayya that some or many of us watching, meditating, and practicing so our fourth fortnight during these past 2 weeks we've taken a deep dive and absorptions of mind or at least 7 of them in detail, together with taking a long look at the nature of the self or non-self nature. Follow that link In yesterday's teaching, we all know the noble path, the Ayya Magha, and true Arahanta, both path and fruits. The 8 kinds of noble beings, as we recite in our daily chanting, Esa Bhagavato. The Sawika Sankha. Sawika or Sawika means the So we've also been practicing the teachings on compassion, the meditations on compassion during this time, and the candle meditation. It's actually one of my favorites. Period. I would highly recommend it. I found this so good and for purifying and those we love, universality, ways of also extending to those who we have special dukkha with. Found his the candle meditation, which is part of the series we just came upon yesterday. You know, there's a way these type so maybe we'll give some to hear. It looks like my video is on. Able to see and hear again now? See and hear me. Can you give us up, Angeli? How about now? Aha, you can hear me now. Okay. Welcome. to everyone. So what I was saying about these meditations is I found that actually, as Ayakema was saying, to use our imagination, that even just imagining isn't like fully real. Feel even in those cases, just mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the mind, and you observe what's happening when you're practicing with these meditations. I think it can be seen how beneficial, how purifying, how healthy it is, even just to try, even just to imagine and to just
Everyone, they're requesting that we take off the video, that the video is apparently taking too much power. So if you would just all darken your screens, stop the video portion, and just keep your audio on, and that hopefully will help help the situation.
Greetings again. Ayya Sobhana was joking. Dukkha. It is. The verse goes, dukkha, it is again and again, but she was saying is to be turned to a Wi-Fi signal again and again. So I don't know if you can hear my joke or not, but it's not okay yet. No. Somebody could hear that. Well, I was speaking about Ayya Khema's emphasis on the purification or like cleansing of the body, mind, and heart through these meditation practices, together with our work with sila, moral ethics and integrity, and of course the insight and wisdom. And this actually segues very well into one of the main themes of the Magha Puja Sangha Day. That is the teaching of the Ovada Patimokkha, teaching that's said to have been taught by the Buddha very early on in his teaching career, not so long after his awakening and the founding of the Sangha. So I'm going to go over with you. Oh, I'm glad to going to go over that this full moon is especially commemorating them. Particularly, and this I could say as awakening, beginning to teach the Dhamma, founding of the Sangha, that is the into being of three jewels, or the triple gem in the world. In the first year after the Buddha's great awakening, on this full moon, then stream entry of the great disciple Sariputta or Shariputra, upon hearing the what's called the Ye Dhamma verse. First reunion was held, a gathering of 1,250 members of the Sangha, all of whom were Arahantas, those who the Buddha said to for the welfare and happiness the two of you to go in the same direction. Forth for the welfare of the world to share this Dhamma. Their eyes who can see and hear and benefit. So they're all said to have come back together again in a way spontaneously. So even It's not. Hello again. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Ratnataya. Well, if this doesn't work, then you can take your candle and incense and flowers and the image and your heart of Dhamma and meditation and just fantastic your meditation together. Or those of you who are Dhamma teachers and facilitators who are here, you should be able to hear. Hello. You may have to go to being, well, You can hear now? Bhavana? Great. Okay, I can't see myself. We'll see if tech support is able to get on the other side. So, as I was saying about the Buddha's teaching then on that full moon night with the gathering of 1250 Arahantas, the Buddha taught something then called the Ovada Patimokkha. So some of you are familiar with the Patimokkha as the Buddhist monastic code, the precepts for the bhikkhus and the bhikkhunis. More than 200 of them for the bhikkhus and more than 300 of them for the bhikkhunis in the Pali text, 311. And then the Ovada is the teaching that's often given then on the full moon or new moon night, together with the recitation of the precepts, the Patimokkha. But this Ovada Patimokkha that the Buddha taught, this was back before there were all those precepts for bhikkhus and bhikkhunis together with the Arahanta Sangha. And this could be said to be, in a way, the Patimokkha for everyone. So mukha means the face or the head or the mouth. Or mokha also means like moksha, liberation. So pati can then mean like to turn around, come back to liberation, or come back to what is like you could say like the fountainhead would be considered to be the source or the mouth of the stream. So to come back to that. So this is really a core, essential, fundamental teaching of the Buddha that's for absolutely everyone. This is the Patimokkha for everyone, containing just the basic principles. And the Buddha talked about teaching Dhamma and Vinaya. And most of the time he's talking about teaching in like teaching what he had realized, and then teaching in theory and then also in practice, as the path of practice. And the Patimokkha or Vada Patimokkha in this case is very much referring then to the basic principles of the path of practice. And I was just thinking for our process this evening, one part of the Ovada Patimokkha starts out, Anti paramang tapo titika nipanang paramang vadanti buddham. Gandhi is patience. So for everyone who has been patient and is still here, then really the Buddha said that patience is among all of the ascetical practices, amongst all of the austerities, and for those who would cross the flood and come to the ford, then Kanti is the greatest of all of the ascetical practices, all of the austerities. So better than trying to walk on a bed of nails. How does it compare this evening? Trying to swallow fire, extensive fasting, wearing like itchy hair clothing, or going in bark, or there's something called the dog duty ascetic, where it's like the human being as an ascetical practice would go on all fours and just eat the excrement or the rotten food that had fallen down somewhere. So all of these were popular kinds of ascetical practices, but the Buddha said in the Ovada Patimokkha, in this teaching, that patience, khanti or kshanti, that this really, truly, this is the supreme amongst the austerities. And the tapas, tapo, that we translate as austerity then, or the ascetical practices, actually means like to slough off, as a snake may shed its skin, or to like burn off the dross, as when gold is heated through fire, and then the impurities that are within are actually they're burned out within it, leaving only the pure gold. So if we can think about any difficulty or impatience that we might feel now, how small that might be compared to all of the other great difficulties of life, or even these kinds of ascetical practices that people undertook to try to burn off, to try to slough off, to try to get through, to try to purify their minds and hearts and grow and develop in the path, even like bathing at all kinds of prescribed hours of the day, or never combing one's hair and letting it grow out, and letting insects and all kinds of biting and creeping and crawling things like crawl onto one's body and then just bite and like just suck all the blood and do whatever they want to, living in one's hair and one's skin and one's eyes and one's nose and one's ears, all of that as the ascetical practices. And we think about that. So funny, the things that we feel impatient and irritated and difficult about, or we lose our temper, we give up all of that. So the Buddha in the Ovada Patimokkha saying that patience is the supreme amongst the austerities, but then Nibbanang Paramang Vadanti Buddha, then the burning out, the Nibbana or Nirvana, where there's then no more dross left to burn. There's no more festering defilement. There's nothing left to be patient about. It's all done. Then the Buddhas say that this is supreme. So this kind of purification that we were talking about earlier, and the candle in the heart and all of that is like, seems very, very sweet and very mild in comparison to these things that we're talking about, but actually also directly connected, because all of those things that we're talking about, really the things that may exist in our minds and hearts, or may not, because they're not essential to being a human. The Buddha mentioned that the nature of the mind or heart, the papasara citta, the mind and heart, is essentially fundamentally bright, luminous. It may be occluded and clouded over by adventitious defilements, corruptions, convolutions, or not, like the full moon that's shining there now here outside may have clouds passing in front of it or not. Like the nature of the moon has nothing to do with that. It itself is untouched by that. The moon and its reflection of the sunshine. So the clouds may be there or not. And yet still there's that. We can think about the sky as well, and whether there's anything in it or not. We think that the nature of the sky isn't really affected by that. Whether there's a cloud in it or not, we think like the nature of the sky is the same. So actually then this work, the application of our intentions, of our pure, beautiful and excellent intentions towards whatever is present, really bringing up and developing and applying and spreading these bright, clear, pure, beautiful states of mind And then also in connection with all the ideas that we have about anyone and everyone, anything and everything that we can imagine, that pretty much runs the gamut of it. And so we're able to intentionally to clear and to purify all of that. And then in the absence of the convolutions and distortions and attachments, then we can actually see not only the creation of something in the mind that's good and beautiful, but the actual like clear, pure, bright nature of the mind itself in the absence of anything else. So for the Ayya Patimokkha, then the Buddha also taught this. Sabha papasa akaranang kusala supasampadam sajita pariyodapanang etang buddhanusasanam. So in this, it says I've been signed out because my account is now being used by another device. It's because of that, then I only have the options to end meeting for all or to leave meeting. And say cancel. Okay.
I'll still be able to hear you.
Are you still able to hear me? Oh, we can hear. Hello, Ilona. Hello, Bhavanu. Hello, everyone again. Wonderful. I can't see me, but you can. That's just fine. I live without mirrors, and normally I can't see myself anyway. Hello, Malai. Hello, Ananea. Hello, Maria. Hello, Shubangi. So, warm greetings once again. Here in this teaching of the Ayya Patimokkha, then the Buddha is simply talking about not doing the things that are unhealthy and unwholesome. Just that. And then also upasampada. Actually, this word upasampada is used for full acceptance or full admission, full ordination, like bhikkhu and bhikkhuni ordination in the monastic community, and also for the teaching on the jhanas. When the person is entering into that meditative absorption, when they gain access to that level of unification of mind, then this is also called upasampada, kind of upasampada. In this case, the Buddha is talking about what is healthy, wholesome, blessed, beneficial, this nature, these qualities, and the entry into, you'd say, the unification of mind within, like abiding within this nature or these qualities. So whether on the one hand we bring them up and we enter into them because we brought them up, or on the other hand, because we're experiencing them in our awareness of our mind in the absence of anything that is unwholesome, that's a distortion, a convolution, and affliction, just the absence. And then this is a kind of a liberation. So there are two kinds of the kusala. There's the kind of kusala where we make something, we develop something that's healthy and wholesome and blessed and beneficial, that's bound up with merit. And then leads to benefit, to blessings as the result of having made something that's excellent and beautiful and virtuous and good. Or there's the kind that's actually the absence of anything other than just really just the beautiful, excellent nature of the mind and heart that's a liberation. So there's the absence of anything that's limiting, that's binding, that's catching, that's twisting, convoluting, tying up in knots. All of that is just absent. And so with the unbinding, then with the freedom from those things in that absence, then there's the freedom, the liberation of the heart. So then this is also called the kusala supasampada. This is then the natural kusala, the nature of the Dhamma, or the clear, bright, pure, natural nature of the human heart. And then the Buddha is speaking about sacitta, citta, the mind, the heart, the pariyodapana. So pariyodapana, then we're talking about like that. In one way, we're talking about the work of like doing that purification work, making that effort, and then also seeing the results with our mind and heart of that cleaning up, as Ayakema was talking about, like the thorough house cleaning with regards to our, you'd say, our karmic formations, fabrications, constructs of body, of feelings, of mind, making that effort and doing that cleanup work. But then on the other hand, then there's the experience of the healthy, wholesome, beautiful mind and heart, just experiencing its nature as it is, where you'd say, then it's like you're touching, you're feeling, you're experiencing. It's like it's in the palm of your hand, but it's in your whole body, your whole mind, your whole heart, that you're experiencing that beautiful, pure heart and that sense of cleanliness. So these 3 points, these 3 aspects, or these 3 parts, are then the basic fundamental teaching in this path of practice that the Buddha gave at this time, before any of these hundreds of precepts for the bhikkhus or for the bhikkhunis were established. So in a way, this is very simple and very easy. And in another way, it is absolutely deep and pervasive and goes right to the heart of the teaching and the practice and the realization in this path, what the Buddha experienced for himself, and then what he was sharing, then even with you'd say like the super high quality early Sangha. So at that time, then also the Buddha gave his transmission for that early Sangha of Arahantas to they themselves be able to then give the Uposampada. That's the full acceptance, say the ordination to others. So this is part of then like the great transmission of the heart of the path of teaching, and then also for the transmission of the Sangha, which has lasted then to this day. So you could say in a way the Buddha sharing his own awakened heart, and then the powers that he had for himself, then sharing that, the powers and the realization, the capabilities, sharing that with everyone else, and trusting that to his heirs in the Sangha. So when we talk about etang buddhanasasanang, then the last line, that means that actually the Buddha was recognizing then at that time that he was saying that this is not only his teaching in his great awakened super knowledge for, how very long humanity had existed, then that he was not the only Buddha, not the only one to have become a Buddha, but this is something so fundamental and essential that this is at the heart and core of every one of the Buddha's awakenings, realizations, and then teaching. So this is the teaching of all of the Buddhas. Etang Buddhanusasana. Now, someone has asked then about Mahapajapati Gautami, and some people have been writing about her as like, was she the Buddha for women? And then some people say, no, in Theravada Buddhism, there's only one Buddha. You have to go to Mahayana Buddhism or Vajrayana Buddhism or Tantrayana Buddhism to get a female Buddha, or to have more than one Buddha. And is that true? Yeah. So actually, in the Pali texts, according to the Buddha's teaching, even in our daily, traditional daily chanting, our blessing chanting, then there's something called Buddhanu Buddhang in our blessing chanting. And Buddhanu Buddhang is talking about the Sawaka or Sawika Sangha. It means those who have awakened in the wake of the awakened one. Those who have become Buddhas, meaning awake, those who have become Buddhas through following, through their contact, through their connection with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. So then those who are the Sawakas and Sawikas, they are called Sawakas and Sawika Buddhas in the Pali text Theravada tradition. And Mahapajapati Gautami was one of them. In fact, all of those 500 early founding bhikkhunis who became arahantas were also all one of them. They were all arahantas and Sawika Buddhas. So in the Pali texts and even in classical Buddhist teaching, early Buddhist teaching as it's passed on in Mahayana and Vajrayana and Tantrayana Buddhism, then these three paths of Buddhahood are also taught likewise. That of the Samma Sambuddha, who awakens on their own. They discover the path themselves, not through their connection in this lifetime with another Buddha or that Buddha's teaching or other awakened disciples or disciples of the Buddha who are passing on or who are sharing that teaching, but by themselves. And so this is considered to be an absolutely extraordinary merit. Very, very rare to be able to do that. Then also Pacceka Buddhas, they're also Arahantas, they're also called Buddhas. They also awaken without contacting another Buddha, and they don't teach. So this is a big difference. One of the reasons that we so much appreciate who is a Samma Sambuddha is because they have the heart to share. They have the dedication to share and to teach, and they have this special parami developed to be able to teach successfully and effectively through, say, it's called innumerable skillful means, innumerable expedient means, aneka pariyayena, means through so many kinds of means and methods. And so this is exceptional. None of the others who wake up are said to be able to have that extent of parami or ability to be able to teach with so much wisdom and so many skillful means. Then the arahantas, who are the sawikas, female, or the sawakas, in male form, these disciples of the Buddha, then also we greatly treasure and cherish them, because through the precepts, if they're bhikkhus or bhikkhunis, then the way the Buddha has created it, their lives have to connect to others. They're not just to go and take food direct from the forest and live without receiving and connecting to others, receiving the offerings from others. So that connection is built into the way the Buddha made his sasana or his dispensation. I believe, or my understanding is, as a way of also perpetuating and enabling the teaching to be shared and spread and passed on for as long as possible through this spreading and sharing of the connections of the Sangha and of the merits that come through this kind of personal contact with those who are practicing, and then just being able to like be in touch with them. There are those who have asked if they could offer the meal like through Zoom, be able to make the meal offering through Zoom, and we can do that. And then we have like sight and sound contact, but the way that the Buddha set it up, actually, we're even supposed to receive that as bhikkhus or bhikkhunis by hand. So even to have that, that physical contact, not even like at a distance. So this is in coronavirus time, we're practicing social distancing, and this becomes a little bit more difficult, but we've worked it out. I so much appreciate those who have been coming in person. And during our winter retreat time, still to socially distance and mask, to offer the meal and like to offer directly through this direct physical contact. There's something very special about it. Sometimes people say it's because our arms are connected to our hearts. When we touch something with our hands, then it's like it's directly connected to our heart. And people say that they experience that. But I'd like to come back to the question then of whether these early bhikkhunis and Mahapajapati Gautami could then rightly be called a Buddha for women or female Buddhas. And in this way, according to the early Buddhist teaching, according to the Pali text tradition and the classical explications, yes, they can. They're called Sāvika Buddhas. So anyone, in fact, who realizes full and complete awakening in this path, whether during this lifetime or at the time of their death, if they realize full awakening, nibbana or nirvana, then at the time they die, then this is called pari-nibbana or parinirvana, which means a final. It doesn't just mean they're finally dead. It doesn't just mean that, but we say like their great final passing, but it means there's something called nibbana or nirvana with remainder, or nibbana without remainder. Those who realize nibbana in this lifetime before they pass away, this is something that is so highly encouraged and highly regarded, because those people, not only, as Ayya Khema has been saying, she's been encouraging like in your lifetime, not just at the time you pass away, so you can have a chance to enjoy it, she's said in several of the teachings. But actually, that's not the reason that I learned in the Sangha traditionally for really moralizing and encouraging realizing Nibbana in this lifetime, and hopefully even with some span in time before the person passes away. It's actually to give time to the others. Not only so you can enjoy that experience, which of course, any freedom from suffering, even small freedom from suffering, we enjoy and appreciate a lot. Even if we're carrying a heavy bag up the mountainside for just 5 or 10 minutes, when we take off that load, we feel so great. This is so mundane. We experience these freedoms. Or if we feel sick, even for a short time, like to have some diarrhea for a few hours or something, and then we feel the suffering of that. Then when it's over, oh, we feel so much better. It's such a relief. These things are so transitory. so temporary, and yet to be able to experience the big loads being taken off, and the asavas, not just like losing everything through the diarrhea of the mind over and over again, all that we gained, to experience that integrity, that continence in ourselves, even not 100%, is just like something else entirely that we feel is so worth it, but actually not for that. Even there is that reason, but to be able to share, you'd say, in a way like that witness with the others. Ayya Khema was saying, other people may not even recognize you. They may not even notice that anything has changed for you at all. It's true. It may be like that. And yet often people do see, they do notice when something is different. They can even tell when you've had a good meditation. You look entirely different. Your eyes are shining. You have a glow. It's like your face has rearranged itself in a balanced way. Your body has changed. Your shoulders and your jaw, and like everything is all aligned differently. And if people have some sensitivity, they love you, they care, they're perceptive. Even people on the street can notice, not only for just a good sitting meditation with your eyes closed, but even I remember there was someone who I knew closely in Hong Kong a few years ago, who had never been in such a big city before. And then they learned the practice of metta meditation at a little meditation center while they were there. And so they were in that little meditation center and they learned that practice of metta for the first time. And thus have I heard, thus do I remember it. Then they went down onto the extremely crowded and busy streets of Hong Kong with the people all, maybe not right now with coronavirus, I don't know, but at that time it was ubiquitous. The streets were like so full and so crowded and people busy, and it's like, kind of like just herding thousands of cattle or something, how the people would move. I've seen this in New York and other mass commute areas, Los Angeles freeway also. And then they went down onto the street and they started just practicing metta meditation while walking on the street. And just like they would just look up, and as they were walking, and actually look at the people and actually look at them, their face and their eyes with metta. So actually like looking and actually seeing them, that presence. And then also you could say it's coming from a heart of giving something beautiful and good as well. So generosity and awareness are also present. And then the loving kindness. And the way that I've heard it, the way that I remember it, then some of the people would just be like bothered that someone was being so, offensive and interruptive as to be like looking at them while they're just minding their own business and walking. And it's just like kind of like slough off a shoe and just, but quickly passed with small offense for having dared to actually look at someone in their face and their eyes, which in Asian culture sometimes may not be appropriate. But then there were so many other people who then in just a moment, like just seeing that purity of intention and that presence, then it's like also with that openness through the eyes and passing through the heart with the clarity and loving kindness. And also it's like a shutter that had been closed and blocked, just opened and allowed in that pure love, that metta. And then their demeanor also shifted and changed, even just in these brief moments within a second or 2 seconds, passing quickly by on the street. So other people do notice, other people do care. It can be impactful for others. On this full moon also, then Sariputta, then not yet a disciple of the Buddha, but just a seeker, was out walking and then saw someone else, a monastic monastic also walking into the city, carrying their bowl, going for alms, just the way that that person was walking looked different. Didn't say anything, didn't look at him during that time, none of that. He just observed from a distance that person's presence while they were walking, and he knew that thing that he had been looking for, that thing that he was searching for, that he was seeking in his whole life, that he had then dedicated his life to finding. He knew that he saw that in that person. So when that person then emerged again from the city, he waited. When they emerged with their alms bowl, having received those alms, then he respectfully approached from a distance and then inquired. So this is also then the lunar anniversary, as I said, of the Ayya Dhamma teaching. So that person was one of the first 5 bhikkhus, one of the first 5 disciples of the Buddha. So Sariputta then asked that monk to be his teacher. That monk, in all humility, then said, actually, you should meet my teacher. The Buddha, who is staying not far from here. But then he conceded to share one 4-line verse of the Buddha's teaching, and it's also the lunar anniversary of this teaching. So I'll share this one with you as well. This is the Ayya Dhamma. In English, I like to say Ayya Dhamma. This is the Ayya Dhamma verse, 4-line verse. Ayya Dhamma Hetung Papawa Tesang Hetung Tathagato Aha Tesanja Yo Nirodho Ewang Wadi Mahasamano Ti. So this verse is also a core, essential teaching. In fact, sometimes when the ancient ruins are found around South and Southeast Asian, far-flung, spread far and wide, one of the ways that those ruins are identified as belonging to the ancient Buddhist communities and teachings is because of the inscription of this Ayya Dhamma verse on a Dhamma wheel, often inscribed on Dhamma wheels, spread far and wide. Then also there are images. The Jain images and Buddha images look very similar. You know, someone sitting in meditation looking holy in terms of statues, and yet they used to inscribe the Ayya Dhamma verse on the statue of the Buddha to distinguish, because this is the salient teaching of the Buddhas. Ayya Dhamma Hetung Papawa Te Sang Hetung Tathagato Aha. So this is about causation, independent origination. The salient aspect of this teaching that the Buddha taught about what arises from a cause or causation, and then also taught cessation. And this is the teaching of the great ascetic. That's the Mahasamana, referring to the Buddha. You think, cause and effect? I know that. I understand that. I've learned that from grade school. For Sariputta, though, hearing and understanding that verse led to his entry into the Arahanta path right then and there. He became a stream enterer, and then he experienced in himself not only seeing in someone else what he had been seeking, he then experienced for himself through his recognition, deep opening of his mind to the import of this teaching, seeing for himself the meaning of this teaching, then he entered that most noble of streams from which there's no going back to the kinds of levels of doubt. Hello again. Dhamma greetings. You dear people are absolutely amazing. But we need to be like this, don't we? We need to come back again and again. Yeah? I mean, doesn't it, this is what happens. This is what happens actually before the person becomes a stream enterer, all the more so. You catch some glimpse, you see something, you hear something, and then it's gone. So fleeting. Yeah, and you want to be able to keep it somehow, and yet it's like something that you're not able to grab on and hold on to. Yeah, so frustrating. Then you feel what's called the noble suffering, right? Because you really want to be able to come back. You want to be able to see it again. You want to be able to hear it again. And even after the stream entry, then still that chanda, that noble desire is still there for this, but then it's like your container isn't just leaking bottomless. It's like your container now, some of the leaks in your container become sealed, and your container has a bottom. Your container is not going to bottom out into the extent of greed or the extent of hatred that's absolute insanity, that is like the hell-like suffering anymore. Sealed off. And your doubt and confusion about particular things that's there when people are just utterly lost, so confused, and it's like, do not feel they have a refuge, do not feel like they have a sense of where to find what they really need and what it is. That part changes because the person sees the Dhamma for themselves. They touch the Dhamma for themselves. They taste the Dhamma for themselves. And because it's not just a faith-based experience, then the kind of confidence that arises from that comes from their own experience, like Sariputta in this story. Then also, like when he saw that for himself, before that he had a theory, he had a longing, he was seeking, he was searching, but when he saw that for himself, he knew it. And when his mind changed, when he experienced the stream entry, also he knew it. Then he went to his best friend who he had made a pact, a seeker's pact with. And then his best friend also, because his best friend, who later became Mahamoggallana, they became then two of the chief disciples of the Buddha. Even later, the Buddha is supposed to have appointed them as his chief disciples, again, later under this same Magha full moon, according to the traditions. So then his best friend, with whom he had a multi-life, deep heart connection and had shared in this seeker's dedication and pact together, saw in him immediately. He knew. He knew. Then he asked him who, what, why, when, where, right? Yeah, wanted to know, found out, then they went to go to see the Buddha. That was the one promise in their pact that they made. It's like, who finds it first, they will tell, they won't forget the other one, they will tell the other one. This was their seekers' pact with one another. And then later, after they then completed the path with striving, although they were named by the Buddha as his foremost bhikkhu disciples, foremost in wisdom, Sariputta, and then foremost in, say, spiritual powers, Mahamoggallana, they weren't exactly the same, and the merits that they brought were not exactly the same, and the way enlightenment ripened for them and what came to fruit was that was the same is that both of them were completely awakened and completely enlightened, and they fulfilled the path and became arahantas or sāvaka buddhas in the Buddha's dispensation. What was different was the kind of merits and paramis that they had developed before that they brought to that. For Sariputta, then what we call like just so much wisdom. And for Mahamoggallana, then like the spiritual powers that people think are like so fascinating and so interesting. Actually, not everybody gets them to the same degree. Sariputta did not get them to the same degree that Mahamoggallana did. Yeah, but both of them had a great heart for the Sangha. They had great abilities in terms of being able to lead up the Buddha's then still nascent, not enormous, Sangha with those first early disciples. So even though the Buddha had all of those paramis, he wasn't able to do it all himself. And he recognized that people would benefit from different kinds of teachers with different paramis, different qualities, different characteristics. So sometimes someone would come to him and become a disciple, and then he would send them to another of his awakened disciples because of their special qualities that would be of benefit and would be of support to that person. So it's not like we all just become cookie cutter, I don't know, zombie robot Sangha, right? You can just manufacture them by the millions and like this. So the same qualities, but then also the very much unique and special qualities. Um, so uh, now here's the time that we're going into overtime, right? I just want to recognize that. And there's so much about this that I love to share with you. So I'd like to share with you a little bit more about Mahapajapati Gautami, and then have our time of, if you have your candles with you, we have some here that have been prepared. Then also we'll have some special chanting time together. So for those of you who've been involved with Theravada Buddhism for some years, connected to the Bhikkhu Sangha, then you may have heard some of these things that I've been talking about before, but you might not have heard with the traditional Theravada Sangha about Mahapajapati Gautami Theri, the first bhikkhunis, and the Bhikkhuni Sangha and their parinibbana. This does appear in the Pali text canon. Many of you have heard of the Theri Gatha, and within the same collection, the Khuddaka Nikaya, in the Pali text canon, there's something called the Theri Apadana. See, like the heroic biographies or legends of the Theris. And there we find the story, this story of the Mahapajapati Gautami Theri and her 500 of the founding Bhikkhuni Sangha then entering into parinibbana. So when we jump ahead to the end of the Buddha's life in this story that's well known, then also the Buddha is said to have announced his own impending parinibbana, his own impending final passing on this Magha full moon, which is 3 months then before the Vesak full moon, where we remember and commemorate the Buddha's parinibbana. So the Buddha 3 months earlier let the Sangha know, the Sangha in Vesali, which is where Mahapajapati and those bhikkhunis were also staying. So he was there at that time, and then let Ananda and let the Bhikkhu Sangha know, and then Mahapajapati Gautami also came to know of this. So this text that we have in the Pali text is also preserved in several different texts that have been recorded in the Chinese canon. They're not Mahayana texts, they're not Vajrayana texts or Tantrayana texts. They're the early Buddhist teaching texts as they were recorded in Chinese. So there are actually several versions of this same story which are very similar. And in some of them, it just mentions this 3 months before the Buddha's parinibbana as being the time. That is this full moon now, tonight. In one of them, it mentions that Mahapajapati Gautami then, upon learning this and making her own decision, her own determination that it was time for her parinibbana, then that she taught for 7 days and 7 nights continuously leading up to that time, which would mean that their parinibbana, this great mass parinibbana of the early Bhikkhuni Sangha founders, as they decided to enter parinibbana together per the text, that this happened then on the lunar quarter called the eighth day. So there's the full moon Uposatha, the new moon Uposatha, and then something called the 8th day Uposatha, which we say is the lunar quarter Uposatha. So then you have an Uposatha once a week rather than once every 2 weeks. So then on this coming lunar quarter, per that text, that would be the day. So before, in all of these texts, before she entered parinibbana, all of them agree that the Buddha asked her to then perform miracles. According to our monastic precepts, we're not actually supposed to display supernormal powers or to perform miracles, because the Buddha mentioned that the teaching and the realization of the teaching is the greatest miracle. And these other miracles are really like small, they're like baubles. Or like, in a way, compared to the true gold, it's almost like the fool's gold or false jewels. But people look and it's sparkly and bright and it seems special and different, and then feel that it's so special and important. And then often people seek and get attached to that, right? Which people who develop concentration, sometimes they can get these powers even though they're not awakened at all. Sometimes that happens like that, and then other people like it and it's like woo, and you get popular and so many people come, and then but if you don't have the real Dhamma and real experience, then what good is it? It's like just a fish going to the hook, yeah. Rather than getting the real nutriment it's seeking, it's just getting more hook of samsara that doesn't lead to freedom. But still, because people believe in it, and because at that time, or perhaps subsequently, as these texts developed, people somehow didn't believe that women were capable of such awakening or such spiritual power. And because of that, explicitly because of that, the Buddha said that there are those within the assemblies here who do not believe that women are capable. Show your spiritual power now, O Gautami, for those who are such fools. It says. And so then she's supposed to have then performed these great, absolutely amazing feats of supernormal powers, which she didn't do otherwise, because it's not what not what the Buddhist Sangha was normally all about. So here's the question that I mentioned earlier in the Tibetan traditions, then this very time being like the day of miracles, and then like the week of miracles. I just wondered, is there some old precedent to this in the Tibetan tradition? Then they say that this is the time that the Buddha worked miracles in Savatthi. Also, we have it in the Pali text, but that comes at the beginning of the Vasa, not at this time now. This time now is the time that all of the texts agree is the time that Mahapajapati Gotami and those first bhikkhunis at the Buddha's direction then worked these incredible miracles before their Mahaparinibbana. So I just bring that up as a question because I was wondering about it myself. I don't draw any conclusions from it. I'd like to invite everyone who's here who wishes to join now in traditional, some traditional chanting for Magha Puja. If you have a candle, flowers, incense, anything like that, you're welcome to get it. Now at this time, and you're welcome to join in together. You should have received at least the link to the text for this chanting. Yes, please. So our text support here has very kindly also prepared candles and flowers and incense for us here. Is there any way that I can? Oh, thank you.
This may be hazardous.
So I'm going to the Magha Puja page. And I've got my candle here. So from my heart to yours, to all beings, and offered to the Buddha, all of the Buddhas of the Arahant Sangha, all of the noble disciples, all those who are the seekers, who are looking for the path. So you're welcome to join in this chanting together. Those who are here will be joining in this. Right now, all receiving our candles. Our tech support has just been so kanti paramang tapo titika, so patient through everything, and now even offering the candles on these beautiful leaves here. I have behind me a Arahanti Bhikkhuni image of Patachara. She'll represent all of the Bhikkhuni Arahantas who entered Parinibbana at that time, and all of the great disciples, and our Kandara Buddha image here. So for Magha Puja, welcome to join together. Namayang Buddhassa Bhagavato Puppapaganamakkarang Karomase Bhagavato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Acayang Magha Punami Sampata Magha Nakatena Punachando Yuto Ayya Tathaloka Arahang Samma Sambuddho Chaturangike Sawakasanipate Oada Patimokang Udisi. Today is the full moon day in the month of Magha, the date on which the Tathagata, the worthy one, rightly self-awakened, held the four-factored meeting of his disciples and gave the Patimokkha exhortation. Tadahi Tatesani Bhikkhu Satani Sabe Sangyewa Kina Sawanang Sabe Te Ehi Bhikkhuka Sabe Pite Anamantitawa Bhagavato Santikang Agata. Uweluwane Kalanda Kaniwape Magha Punamiyang Vadhamana Kachaya. At that time, 1,250 monks, all entirely freed of defilements, all recipients of the Kambiku ordination, all unnotified of the meeting, came to the Blessed One's presence in the squirrel's feeding ground in the bamboo forest on the afternoon of the full moon day in Magha. Tasmin chasani pate Bhagavan Visudutang Uposatang Akasi Oada Patimokang Udisi. In that meeting, the Blessed One held an utterly pure full moon observance and gave the Patimokkha, that's the Ovada Patimokkha exhortation. Ayang Amhakang Bhagavato Eko Yewa Sawaka Sanipato Ahosi Chaturangiko Adha terasani bhikkhu satani sabbe samyewa kina sawanang. This was the only time our Blessed One held a four-factored meeting with his disciples, 1,250 monks, all entirely free of defilement. Mayantani imang makapunami nakata samayang taka lasatisang sampata suchira pariniputampi tang pakawantang samanhusaranamana imasming tassa pakavato sakipute chetiye. Same date, the full moon day in Magha, remembering the, even though he long ago had gained total liberation, we have come and offer this memorial to him. Ime danta dipadupadi sakare kahetoa ano sakaru padhanang karitoa. We take these offerings, candles, incense, and so forth, and make our bodies a vessel for them. Tassa bhagavato yata puja gune anusaranta imang patimakarang or tupang. We have a stupa here also. Tikatung padakinang karisama yata kahitehi sakarehi pujang kurumana. Reflecting on the Blessed One's virtues as they actually are. Normally, we would circumambulate this place, this image, this stupa 3 times, paying homage to the Buddha with the offerings that we hold. Sadhu no pante bhagavan sasavaka sanghom suchira pariniputtopi gune hitaramano. Although the Blessed One, together with that community of his noble disciples, long ago attained total liberation, they are remembered through their virtues. Ime amhehi kahite sakare patiganhatu amhakang Tikaratang Hitaya Sukhaya May these simple offerings be accepted for our long-lasting benefit and the happiness that it gives us. You can say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Now the other page we have marked is the Ovada Patimokkha Gata. You're welcome to join in chanting this together also. In our books here, it's on page 34. I'm not sure about your PDF. Kanti paramang tapotitika nipanang paramang wadanti bodham nahipa pachito parupaka samano hote parang vihetayanto. Patient forbearance is the highest austerity. Liberation is highest. That's what the Buddhas say. He is no monk who harms another, nor a contemplative, he who oppresses another. Sapa papasa akaranam Kosala sopasampadam Sachita pariyodapanam Etang bodhanasasanam. The non-doing of all evil, the performance of what is skillful, the cleansing of one's own mind. This is the Buddha's teaching. So, dear Dhamma friends who are still here together, I would also, if you need to go, you're welcome to. I would also like to share one more thing with you. If I'm able to. So for several years, I've been reading the Gautami Theri Apadana. It's long, it has several sections, and I've been reading it in English translations and also in the Pali. These days, there's been a lot of discussion about what translation actually means. I'd just like to say what we have here is very close to the Pali. In its form, in its lines, in its words. And I'm just going to share with you just the very first recitation section of the Mahapajapati Gautami Theri Apadana. And it's just the first recitation part, not the entirety. And you can find it also online. Available through Jonathan Walters' translation. This translation is my own, informed by his and others. One day the world's bright lamp, the caravan leader of humankind, dwelt in the lovely gabled Kutagara hall in the great wood at Vaisali. The victor's mother's sister, Maha Gautami Bhikkhuni, was at that time dwelling in that lovely city in a Bhikkhuni Uposatha, a Bhikkhuni ashram, together with the 500 liberated Bhikkhunis. Having gone off alone, in her heart-mind she reflected thus: the Buddha's parinibbana and that of the leading disciples, Rahula, Ananda, and Nanda, I will not be able to see. The Buddha's parinibbana and that of the great leading disciples, Mahakassapa and Nanda, Ananda and Rahula, the conditions for this life, the Ayu Sankara from the past, releasing these, I would let burn out. Let me go to the guide of the world to make known the blessings of the great sage. For this, Thus the 500 bhikkhunis in their thoughts, first the leader Kema, and then the others, also reflected in the same way. Then the earth shook, the thunder gods roared, the devatas dwelling in their monastery felt the weight of grief, and weeping, their tears poured forth. Then all of her younger bhikkhuni friends approached Gautami. They bowed down their heads at her feet and inquired with these words, "Wherefore, Ayya, noble lady, when you had gone into solitude, we were sprinkled with tears. The earth and the mountains trembled," they said, "and the drums of the thunder god roared. Then it was as though grieving was heard. What does it mean, O Gautami?" Then she explained to all of them, just as she had been reflecting, and they too, all themselves as well, each one, shared just as they too had been reflecting. "If it is your pleasure, noble lady, Ayya, Nibbana, unsurpassed and pure, we too will all enter Nibbana as well, O devoted one, with the ascent of the Buddha. We all together left, leaving behind both the home life and becoming. Let us indeed also go together unto the ultimate Parinibbana." What critical can be said to women who say, "I'm going to Nibbana"? And together they all left the Bhikkhuni's monastery. Inhabitants of the ashram, all devatas, please forgive me. I look at our Bhikkhuni's retreat for the last time. I'll go to that unconditioned, where there is neither aging nor death, no association with the unbeloved, or separation from the beloved. Those not free from passion, upon hearing the words of that air of the welcome one, were grieved, lamenting, "Oh, how lacking in merits are we! The Bhikkhuni's retreat is empty. They have gone out like stars at dawn. So the conqueror's heirs are no more to be seen. Gautami is going to Nibbana with her 500 companions together, like the 500 tributaries of the Ganges flow together to the sea." As they were going along the road, faithful upasikas, seeing them, came out from their houses and at their feet bowed down and spoke thus, "O ye of great wealth of Dhamma, how can it be your pleasure? Do not leave us without a protector and guide. Do not be intent upon Parinibbana." They wailed and lamented. With the intention to dispel their grief, Magha Gautami spoke these sweet words, "Enough with crying, my children. Today is a day for you to laugh. Suffering is understood, the cause of suffering allayed. I've experienced cessation. The path has been well cultivated." Sadhu, 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 anumodami. I'd like to request your assistance to offer this candle here in front of the Arahanti Bhikkhuni image. You offer yours also. Yes. If you can put your heart together here. Thank you. That was the debut of that translation. Who knows? Maybe during my retreat time, I'll work with the rest of it. I just finished that today. So for those who are still here, our program is going late. Sometimes on these full moon nights, on these special days, even the program will go to midnight or even all night Dhamma and meditation. Ajahn Chah was famous for the all-night Dhamma talks on these days. We're not going to stay here all night. We're going to go back to our kutis in the forest under the full moon and meditate together after this. But I'd like to give some time, perhaps just 10 or 15 more minutes for anyone who has any questions or anything that they'd like to share. And again, I'll show you all of the candles here now from everyone who is here. Maybe you had a chance momentarily to see all of our retreatants, or not all, but many of our retreatants here together, who have been in the background, all of us practicing together here in the forest, those who are practicing in our monastery also together. So I'll give another 10 or 15 minutes, and if you need to go off now, that's completely okay. If you would like to ask a question, then you are warmly welcome and invited to share, to ask a question now. Thank you very much, Ananea, for saying yes to my translation. I was working on it this afternoon, so maybe I'll want to refine it further. But for several years, I felt a little bit frustrated with some of the others because it's like sometimes I think people don't know what they're talking about, or don't understand in the context of Buddhism, or what the experiences of the path are like, or they impute defiled emotions or motivations upon people who are awakened, even though that's not what it says in the Pali text. Then sometimes they imagine that and make it up because it's like the only thing that they can really think. It's got to be like that. All these things happen, right? Sometimes things get left out, sometimes things get added that weren't there. So from Dhammachari Mudita Mary Doyle, Ayya Khema mentioned fruit and path, or path and fruit. Can you give some examples of path moments? Well, that's great. Ayya Khema gave quite a lot of examples. I was absolutely so much appreciating the level of detail that she gave to all of these teachings, both with regards to the jhanas and then also with regards to the development of the four main sections of the Arahant path, which are then they get divided into the 8 sections. That's why we say the 4 pairs and the 8 kinds of noble beings. And then when you talk about path and fruit, then it becomes 8. And as Ayya Khema was saying, those things don't necessarily come at the same time together. The opening of the path may come at one time, and then subsequently, after a period of time, then the fruit becomes mature. So according to the texts at least, and then also I think from what I've seen from others over time, it's like for some people, then these experiences unfold very, very slowly. Ayya Khema was talking about like the very first path and fruit moments being like very slowly unfolding, and then subsequently going like much faster, and not like needing to have so much integration and all that kind of thing in what she was saying. I feel from what I've seen with people over time, and also what I've read in various texts, both ancient and not quite so ancient, that actually this is something very unique. If we look at the texts, even like the stories of the Arahantas, then we see like some of them just listening to a Dhamma teaching for the first time became stream enterers, or even some of them became Arahantas, even just in one Dhamma teaching and encounter with the Buddha. Whereas others, like even like great disciples like Sariputta and Mahamoggallana, although Sariputta became a stream enterer immediately upon hearing that one verse, he actually had to work really hard with the practice that the Buddha taught before he was able to complete the path and become an Arahanta. And in the Theri Gata. Then we see the verse of a particular Theri who's been practicing even like for 7 years in the presence of the Buddha and getting super frustrated because, she's been trying and trying and trying and trying, and she's there with the Buddha, and it's like she's given up everything and still no path and fruit. But finally she did it. So if you'd like to read about these ancient occasions, then reading in the Pali Canon, then we have so many examples of the people themselves then describing their path and their fruit moments and describing what it's like for them to become an arahanta, and also other people describing the way that they perceived them, what they saw in them, like the story that I gave of one of the Buddha's first 5 disciples when Sariputta saw him. So that's like an external observer's perception of what that looked like, what that felt like, even then what that sounded like when he started speaking and sharing the Dhamma, and then how impactful that was. So also I would say, if you'd like to know some very contemporary stories, then one of our friends in Sri Lanka, Yuki Sirimane, did her PhD on the incredible subject of exactly this. So it's called, I think, Entering the Stream of, what's it called? Entering the Stream of Enlightenment or Entering the Stream of Awakening. If we had more bandwidth, we could do a Google search, but the bandwidth is scarce here. So that's in English, and it's I found it quite an interesting book, and I so much appreciate her giving me a copy. Everyone in that book was anonymous except for Ajahn Brahm. Ajahn Brahm's quite special because he knows the monastic disciplines so very well in and out. Then he knows how to talk about things in a way that's very clearly communicating them and not like avoiding talking about jhanas or avoiding talking about the stages of the path like Ayakema was, and also not avoiding them, but also not breaking precepts in the way that that's being talked about. So I would recommend that book for your interest. And I would say that I've heard a number of stories over time, but I would have to either tell you the stories of lay people, or I would have to tell you the stories of, anonymously tell you their stories, or tell you the story of someone after they've already died. And there are, really quite a lot of examples. The amazing thing is, like, how do people know in one another? Like this story of Sariputta and this Magha full moon like this. And how do they know? How do they sense in one another? How do they know in themselves, right? And yet we have this knowing faculty. We have this knowing quality. We're able to distinguish between different kinds of states of mind in ourselves. All the more so when we practice with the mindfulness of mind practices, and we're able to really just see and know clearly, is our own mind contracted or is it expansive? Is it bound up or is it free? Is it like groveling in the cesspool or is it exalted? And then we can understand what's the difference. Those who practice with mindfulness of the body also can really see the difference in terms of what's going on with the body related to how their mind is working, like how quickly, immediately the body is responsive to that. So the body can be a kind of a a sounding board. So if you practice with mindfulness of the body, probably also you could tell whether your heart feels hard and contracted and like grungy or grumbly, or like there's a war going on in there between things, or whether it feels like dark and occluded, or whether your heart is feeling just like so open and pliant and malleable and expansive and wonderful and all of that, and or whether it's your guts or your jaw or your whatever parts of the body may be, even down to like how you're feeling, sensitivity down to your fingertips and toe tips, the top of your head, or all these kinds of things. So I'm just reflecting on like the miracle of our sentience in a way, and how much we are able to see and know and really truly understand. The ability to put something into words is something else. Even something that we know for ourselves, we might not have the ability to put into words, or to even think about how to be able to communicate that to others. So there can even be a kind of like a silent recognition, even in the presence of, that I've heard about happening between particular teachers and disciples, or the Dhamma friends. And this is like also like the ancient example that we talked about from this Magha full moon with Sariputta and then Mahamoggallana, his friend, and you're just seeing him even before he opened his mouth. He can tell. So there's not even breaking into words yet, but just being able to see, to feel, to know, to understand clearly, and then to know in oneself what is the meaning of that. Yes. So someone has asked, what is the hardest thing about being a bhikkhuni? uh, let's see, the hardest thing about being a bhikkhuni, well, it's like you don't have to, but if you wish, you can do the thing that's hardest to do in human life. I mean, if we've become a bhikkhuni for what's called the right reason, then it's like you're dedicated to doing the absolutely the second to most difficult thing in human life. Wait, what? I said beforehand the hardest thing, and now I'm saying the second to hardest thing. Why am I saying something different? I'll tell you why. At a particular time, I was feeling like this path is really hard, and like what I was trying to do was the most difficult thing ever. Like anything else would be easier than this. That seems so hard and impossible. And probably it was just about trying to be patient with myself. Going back to that verse about patience being the highest austerity. But you know what? At that moment, then I had a kind of, maybe it's a kind of a mundane realization, but a real realization. And I realized this may seem difficult, but I can think of one more thing that would really be more difficult. And that would be not doing it, not doing the work of my heart, not having a sense of path, not feeling willing or able to apply myself, not being able to see any results ever. Now we're going into pure imagination now. This is absolutely hypothetical at this point, but the real part of it is I realized that would be much, much harder. Not doing it because I felt like that would be deadening. And I experienced that sense of deadness as a young person, looking for, also as a seeker, for what I felt like had true meaning, and what really had true meaning that aligned with my own wordless indescribable sense of deep meaning and purpose. And then like how to see that, how to find that, how to connect with that, how to be able to really like to apply myself to that, and needing to live just eating and urinating and defecating and just tearing through the resources just for the sake of just for the sake of doing all of those things, or doing what was expected of me by other people, or it just felt really, really deadening. And I know other young people at that time who experienced that kind of sense of deadness, and then also because of it, drank their lives away, drugged their lives away, did crazy sports, crazy sex, crazy crimes, all these kinds of things, and and also left their life quite early. And I know amongst young people now also that that hasn't stopped, and it's not only young people; it's people of all ages. So I feel the still like the depth of despair that's looking at that pit of deadness, not being able to see and really connect with that heart of meaning, being able to engage it, and being able to do the work of one's heart and life that is really that's life. And this is in a way for some people, I think even for many people, even for the Buddha himself, this is something also that can be found through mindfulness and through really becoming like fully mindful and present. The Buddha mentioned that this like path of distracting ourselves and path of drugging ourselves is like the path of death. The people are in a way, the way many people are living is like already dead, but through the mindfulness. And we're not talking necessarily just about ordinary mindfulness here. We're talking about mindfulness as a path factor and as a factor of awakening, as the foundational factor of awakening that then goes together with investigation of contemplation of looking into the Dhamma, and then awakens inspiration, energy, joy, um, concentration, unification of mind, and then that deep stabilization of mind that enables being able to touch and hold and to pass through and to see into and pass through absolutely everything that is upekkha as an awakening factor. And once we get to that part there, it's a liberation of mind. All the Brahma Viharas and the Upekkha also is a liberation of mind. You're not going to feel so difficult, so trapped, so stuck, so conflicted when that has been uh, touched into, when one experiences this for themselves. So I feel like the hardest thing is to do the hardest thing, but if we didn't do it, it would be even harder. That's my perspective on the hardest thing about being a bhikkhuni. So I really I feel that this is like a basis for my deep gratitude and appreciation and motivation for life is right here with this. Otherwise I feel like, why? Also younger in my monastic life, sometimes then I felt like, it just, level of frustration. I felt like if only I could die. but the Buddhist teaching is like, if I commit suicide, then I'm still going to just, would I have to go through being born again and then have to go through people telling me, this is your name, goo goo gaga, and this is who you are, and then like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all this kind of stuff all over again. It's like I already invested so many hours with all that stuff, and what I would have to take how many years to be able to get up to a level of like development of brain even, and then capability, and and then you have to have a certain level of merit to not be born in a war zone and to have food and so many kinds of things like this, and like I have that now. Right? And who's to say if I throw that all away whether I'm going to get that again or not? I feel like now like more confident in my merits that I'm talking about years ago, and so I felt so difficult and so despairing, but I wasn't confident that if I were to kill myself that would end it and be done with it, and that really that would take care of all of it. I was concerned the Buddha might be right, and it might mean that would just make more mess and more trouble for myself. I'm not saying that would be so for everyone else, but oh, I felt like for myself in that circumstance, there are those even amongst the Buddha's disciples who also felt despairing. It's just a very small number amongst all of those who became arahantas, but there are a couple of them who commit suicide. They're like very sick and suffering so much, and then like use the knife, and then somehow at that time, due to all of their merits and all of their efforts, that's when their mind could release and they became arahantas at that time. So in fact, not through suicide, but the vast majority, according to the classical like Buddhist knowledge base, the vast majority of people who become arahantas actually do so at the time of death, because that's when they're willing to let go. It doesn't mean that the majority of people who die become arahantas. It doesn't mean that at all. It means that there are many people who are practicing who develop a lot of merit and who develop even like a lot of skill and a lot of understanding, but they're attached to some things that they're just not willing to let go of while they're still alive. Sometimes it's particular people, sometimes it's particular responsibilities or particular duties, or sometimes it's just, attachment to the factors, name and form, the factors of identity in this life. uh, that it's at the time of realizing that one needs to leave those behind, that the iron jaws of attachment are like you can actually see it. It's much better to see now and not have to suffer it so much, but still much better to see it at the time that one is getting ready to die, and to be able to let go and experience that freedom and become an arahanta as part of the dying process than not to do so, right? So very different. I think I could talk more within my precepts about the experience of being together with so many different people at the time of their dying, and the different experiences that I've had with that, what I've observed. And dying is not the same thing for everybody. Different people have very different experiences with dying. Some people, their experience with dying is absolutely the most beautiful time of their entire life. And often that has to do with like maturation of what they've been working with, what they've been developing, or because the it's like they had a near death experience that they're going to die from, but they're not dead yet. Yeah. But I mean, the seeing things and understanding them that they didn't before, and then their minds and their hearts open within that experience. And it's just so beautiful, so inspiring, so awesome. and wonderful. And also for other people, the other end of the spectrum, very, very difficult, extremely difficult. Even I've been like near the car crash, not directly near, but near the car crash on the freeway, where the sense was just like the people, just the feeling was just like tearing, screaming, attachment, letting go, and not able to let go, just like, no. So just the epitome of denial and no. And oh, such a horrible ambiance. And then the car that I was in is like coming up near to that area of the freeway and those vehicles. And then this is in Los Angeles, then traffic jam, then the cars were just like smushed into the median in the center of the road, and everything inside the cars also just like smushed. So there's no coming up to that area. Then you think, okay, that it should be quiet. They're dead, right? There's no way that they could live through that because everything is just completely smushed and liquefied, and there's no space that any parts of the body could continue to exist there. So what's there to be attached to? They're dead, aren't they? I'm sure that any of the emergency people who are trying to get in there seeing that they're dead, people go on. They're like, there's nothing more that's going to be happening here. Keep going, keep going. Emergency workers or first responders are saying, right? But the feeling of it at that time, also for those others who are in the car, someone else who is another like strong meditator, and even someone else who is not much of a meditator, but my hair is standing on end. It feels like nails on the chalkboard, and like it's just keeping going and keeping going, and it's really horrible. And if you ask yourself, what is that? It's attachment and not able to accept what has happened. So there's nothing more in that body that can be scooped up and revived to bring back that life, and yet not able to let go of it, and not able to accept that. After some time, hopefully they're able to, right? But it's just so different, and everything in between. Yeah. So this is one of the things for those of us who are together now, who are practicing as we are now. Probably that case is not going to be the case for most of us, because of what we're practicing and what we're working with. Yeah. Our case might be, we don't know. It's, you can't determine it necessarily beforehand. But I've seen for those who are the jhana meditators, when they pass away, also with the Buddha's story, passed away going into progressively into the jhanas, out of the jhanas. Mahapajapati Gautami Theri also, in her story in the Pali texts of her parinibbana, then also she's going into the jhanas, coming out of the jhanas, going into the jhanas, coming out of the jhanas, like this. Then the people, here we're talking about Buddhas, Arahantas, but the people who are not necessarily Arahantas who I've seen, I'm remembering our friend Margaret, who passed away, mutual friend, and I was there at the time then that Margaret passed away. Margaret was a jhana practitioner. She learned and studied jhana with Pa Auk Sayadaw, and in the last months of her life with cancer, then she joined the Pa Auk Sayadaw's retreat, and she was able to progress. In part, I think she was able to progress so quickly and easily because she knew that she was dying and that she was going to die. All of us, of course, are going to die, but we don't realize it many times in the same way. She really realized that it was her second time with the cancer, and she knew that she's not going to be coming back out of this one. Yeah. And so I remember talking with her about it beforehand when she offered the dana, invited the monastics to her house to offer lunch. Then she let know the cancer is back, and I, this one, I have now understood. And so what that did is it made it so she was able to give herself fully and completely to what she felt was most important in her life with the remaining opportunity that she had, because she realized she's going to die and she doesn't know when exactly, but she's got a limited time, and so there's no more fooling around. So she came down to that. No more fooling around. I'm going to just do what is most meaningful to me in everything. And in that retreat time, even though by that time she was quite unhealthy, so she wasn't able to participate in like all of the teachings or like sitting all of the sittings together during that retreat time. At some point she had to just be like just lying down, and yet she was able to take and work with that teaching. And then being there in the hospital building at the time that she passed away, coming there while she was passing away, I remember going up the elevator in the hospital building together with the other monks. And when the elevator door opened, it was like there was unlimited golden light, joy, merit, and blessings just spilling out of the hallway into the elevator as the elevator door opened, like, as if that were water or something. And then it's just like this, just spilling into the elevator. We came out into the hall, and then I looked at the faces of the technicians, no, nurses who were sitting there at the desk in the hall, and they were just beaming. They were just looking like, talk about the baby with the goo goo ga stars in their eyes. And, it's like, we're here to see Margaret who's dying, and they're just smiling and beaming. It's like the hallway is full of golden light, and they have stars in their eyes. And like she's inside there, and the family has come, and and it's just this hospital hallway that's like sterile and smells bad like chemicals, and everything is white with fluorescent lights that look awful and yet so beautiful, the ambiance. And then this extremely heavy door that's got the passcode on it and all these things, that are just like, you think are just so awful, and yet then the door opened and then is super intensified. We have just stepped into the Brahma realm. And then her family members who are not even Buddhists are all there looking like Brahmas and Devas, right? And they're just so much like awe there like this. And then the abbot, who I was not an abbot myself yet at that time, and the abbot who was there together just took one look at everybody and everything, and he said to the other monks, I don't think we need to chant. So, and yes, it seems like that. And then he said to myself and the other young monks, we should sit down and learn something. Right? And so she's just there and looks pretty much dead, except for, in classical dead posture, her body is there. And then the great devas, who are her family members, who are standing around looking like they have halos over them, and like just in awe. And so the atmosphere was just so then intensive, close up nearby to her. And then it was just like thick, like you feel in some meditation retreats or the sacred place or something, like the sacred atmosphere or the meditation atmosphere, the samadhi nimitta, like you can just cut it with a knife or something. And so we just sat in there. And then I feel like we could feel very, very slowly, but it's like time has slowed down and become so unlimited and expansive and vast and just incredibly beautiful. And I'm remembering in my heart now, it's like at that time, it's like, can I experience like this in my heart without my heart breaking, right? Can the body actually handle feeling these sensations in this kind of way, or does it have to like shut down and close them? Everybody in there is just, I think, due to the amazing, really the power of her merits is the way that we describe it. And she's a laywoman. She didn't become a monastic, although she loved the monastics. She offered dana to the monastics. Even she felt like if she were able to, in the end of her life, she had even contemplated, can she become a monastic just because like she would like to die as a monastic? At that time, we didn't have many bhikkhunis around in our area to be able to give a bhikkhuni ordination. We didn't have that yet then, or the bhikkhuni teachers in our area, and also the local monks were not confident about that at that time. So this is years ago, right? Now these circumstances have changed. Now if someone were in that circumstance, as has happened subsequently also, then we would be able to do that for them if that was their wish. But you know, so such a wide variety of possibilities and experiences are there, and what we're thinking, what we're saying, what we're doing, especially our intentional actions, how we're applying and directing our mind with what kinds of mental qualities, that's creating our life. That's creating our experience of our self and our world. That is creating our karma and creating our path. And we are the creators of that. So the Buddha's teaching empowers us to, be intentional about it, and then create, cultivate, and develop. Stop doing the things that are harmful, as the Ovada Patimokkha says. Sabba papasa akaranang. Stop doing the harmful things as much as you can. Reduce and stop them. Get out of that, and then enter into, cultivate, develop, make much of the things that are wholesome, skillful, excellent, brilliant, uh, helpful, liberating. Yeah, and do that, do our own cleanup work of both kinds, the more mundane kind as much as we can, and also the super mundane kind. So now it's been more than 15 minutes. If I start to talk about these kinds of things in the Dhamma, then how the time can fly for me, but I don't know if it flies for the others also. Also on the full moon night, then like I love to stay up and feel energetic, right? But others may feel tired. Um, so does anyone else have any final question or final something that they would like to share? Those who are here present together, those who are here on Zoom, online. It looks like there are still quite a few of you here. Although you could just have your Zoom avatar on, and you could actually be outside under the moonlight somewhere off in the forest. Thank you to Mudita, Dhammachari Mudita, who's enjoyed the extended talk. I'm thinking not to talk all night, actually, like Ajahn Chah. If I were with Ajahn Chah, maybe he would command to talk all night. Or someone else, then you have to be sitting and listening all night long. So how to make your mind and heart good and beneficial and blessed with that circumstance becomes so important. Will you be a prisoner and suffer? Or what's the other option? What's another option? Will you be a prisoner and suffer, or Are there any other options? Is that the only option? Will you be a prisoner and suffer, or what will you go with the flows and someone else? It's more than just going with the flow. Freedom, yes, why not? So there's an old saying, Mana ewa manusayang karanang bandhamokayo, which means mind is the cause of bondage and mind is the cause of liberation. The mind of the human being, which we are now human beings. So there's a way to go with the flow of Dhamma, and there's a way to go with the flow of samsara. And as long as we are in the interval that's called life as a human being, then it's important also that there be the meeting of Dhamma, the flow of Dhamma, and the flow of samsara. So there's what we call the small d Dhammas, all kinds of things, all kinds of phenomena, anything and everything, and there's what we call the big D Dhamma. And the big D Dhamma, both of these are described as flows. Even samsara is described as like floods. The emotions like lust, greed is described as a flood. Anger is described as a flood, as well as a fire. How can something be both a fire and a poison and a flood? There it is. These things are like that. They do all that. They are real, they go into all the elements, multitasking. Fortunately, the Dhamma can go into all the elements in multitasking also. This is what the Buddha did in his expression of Dhamma after awakening, going into all the elements, multitasking every single circumstance, meeting that with Dhamma, being showered by Dhammadharini, yes, the flow. This is the great stream. We say Dhammasota, stream of Dhamma. Dhammadhara also describes the flow of the Dhamma, as well as like the holding quality of the Dhamma stream, to have that be our context and to feel held and supported and uplifted by that, to feel pervaded by that, to feel that in all of our senses, in the base of our body, of our feelings, our minds, our hearts, in all of the bases of our existence. Yes. Anyone here have anything to say, or we'll close with blessings? Is there a way I can switch to the mic that's on the machine so that everyone can hear the others who are here? Before, I have a question for you. Before, when we were chanting together, were you able to hear all the others chanting, or were you only able to hear me because I'm wearing this special mic? Well, I'm going to take off the special mic, and then I'm going to invite others to blessings to you. Could hear others chanting, only you and the background. Okay, great. If you can hear others chanting, then that's just okay, fine. We don't have to change anything.
I did already.
Oh, you did already. Can you still hear? They were very low volume. Now maybe you'll be able to hear them better. Let's see how this goes. So if you know this chant, you are welcome to join in together. I would just like to, how can I say it? I would like to bless our lucky stars. And our lucky stars are our fortunate conditions to meet the Dhamma, to be able to see, hear, receive, hold, retain, and respond to the Dhamma in this life. all of the material supports that support that, all of the people who have offered so much in kindness and generosity that's been of moral support, Dhamma support, material support. Blessings to each and every one of you, to our preceptors, our teachers, our Dhamma friends, those people who irritate us so much we're forced to learn something and get better and get over our obstacles and hindrances, to all of them as to ourselves. The verses of sharing and aspiration. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration.
Through the goodness that arises from our practice,
May our spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, our mothers, our fathers, and our relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of our lives. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless through the goodness that arises from our practice. And through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until we realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May we have upright minds with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken our resolve. The Buddha is our excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is our noble Lord. The Sangha is our supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagavam Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi. Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammam Dhammam Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sawakasangham Sangham Namami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So I'm going to be taking the deep plunge into silent, secluded, intensive retreat. After this, I will not be with you this next on the new moon. Lee Brasington, meditation and Dhamma teacher in the lineage of Ayya, will be joining as our special guest speaker on the new moon night. And then, all things being impermanent, we don't know. After emerging from retreat, I will hopefully plan to see you again on the 28th of March, full moon, for our final number 6 of 6 Uposatha program of this winter retreat. May we practice well, May we realize the opportunity that we have in this time now with these resources, this human life, meeting the Dhamma, and make good, make the best with this opportunity. Do the work of our lives and hearts. Every good blessing to you and to all of you in this great, most excellent work of the path.
Sadhu, 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 Dhammadharini.
Tiruan Sanayaya.
Thank you, Ayya.
Tiruan Sanayaya. Sup.